There's an unexplainable force moving through your life, realigning everything people thought they understood about you. While they were convinced you'd fold under pressure, something deeper was taking root, an inner refusal to keep playing by the rules written by other hands. Now, the veil is starting to lift, and a hidden strength is rising to the surface like a quiet storm that no one saw coming. This wasn't about noise, rebellion, or defiance. It was about tuning into a frequency only meant for those being forged in silence. Every quiet choice you made, every moment you held back instead of retaliating, was part of a greater preparation. While others confused your stillness with surrender, the universe was shaping you for a reality where endurance speaks louder than resistance. What's unfolding now is not accidental. There's a delicate orchestration behind the scenes, a sequence of events, decisions, and losses that now form a sacred geometry. Each disconnection, every betrayal, every hard choice that made you question yourself was not punishment, it was refinement. A spiritual pattern revealing the version of you that's been waiting behind layers of identity you had to shed. You were never constructed to blend in. You were wired to move ahead, to move different. What seemed like odd instincts or inconvenient truths were actually early signals of a deeper intelligence waking up inside you. The dismissals you endured weren't evidence of your inadequacy, they were blind spots in others who couldn't read what wasn't meant for them. You've been absorbing everything. The signs, the silence, the subtle shifts. And now that collection of internal signals is forming a clear directive. The old programming, the one that told you to shrink, to soften, to smooth yourself out for approval, is collapsing. A new operating system is taking over, one that doesn't ask permission to exist. No longer driven by the urge to be everything for everyone, a quiet command is taking its place, an inner knowing that not every presence deserves access to your field. This isn't about drawing lines in the sand. It's a complete recalibration of how your essence interacts with the world. And here's where things begin to bend in a strange direction. The ones who once siphoned your generosity with masked intentions are about to encounter consequences that unfold without your involvement. Every moment where you stretched yourself thin, every time your spirit whispered, "Enough," and you kept pouring anyway, none of it dissolved into nothing. There's a hidden architecture to justice that works in layers, and it's now realigning with stunning accuracy. The space you hold has shifted into a kind of gravitational pull, pulling in truth and pushing out distortion in ways you no longer have to manage consciously. Some are orbiting closer without knowing why, caught in the clarity of your evolution. Others, once comfortable in your softness, are feeling the heat of their own reflection in your presence and backing away. It's not personal. It's a filtering mechanism written into the fabric of your transformation. The resonance is changing, and only those in sync will remain tethered. Where they once mistook your silence for passivity or your openness for naivete, they're now running into walls they can't see but can definitely feel. What used to be subtle awareness has turned into multilayered discernment. You're no longer decoding actions, you're reading the root. And at this depth, nothing false survives unnoticed. Something rare is unfolding beneath the surface of your evolution, an inner sense that no longer responds only to the present moment, but whispers from spaces not yet lived. The guidance rising within you is no longer just instinctual. It carries the weight of unseen timelines, collective shifts, and decisions waiting in the wings. This is no longer just intuition. It's becoming a bridge to what hasn't happened yet. Instead of shrinking away from disruption, you're stepping into the static and hearing clarity inside the noise. Confusion used to push you into retreat. Now it draws out your depth. In a world unraveling at the seams, you're becoming a point of coherence, not by forcing peace, but by refusing to betray truth. The very moments that used to fracture connection are now pathways to greater harmony, simply because you've stopped concealing your real frequency. As this clarity grows louder, something else begins to take root. The ones who can breathe in your rawness without choking are finding themselves magnetized to your presence. Not because you're trying to be understood, but because you're no longer shaping yourself to be digestible. And in the quiet margins of this shift, A deeper code is activating within your being, one that stretches beyond the limits of memory and into the ancestral current that never stopped speaking. A deeper presence has begun to move through your life, one that echoes from places time can't reach. Beings connected to your blood, those who once walked a more restricted path, are reaching through unseen corridors not just to watch, but to assist. These aren't fleeting sensations or imagined comforts. They're deliberate transmissions, sent by those who now understand the weight of what you're carrying. The patterns in your daily life are shifting in ways that defy logic. Objects appear just when clarity is needed. Timelines fold in on themselves through subtle alignments that seem designed, not random. Certain phrases strike your chest like they were crafted for you alone. These signs are being choreographed by those who now see what you're about to unlock, and they're making sure you don't miss your cues. Even more astonishing is the transformation of memory itself. Figures from your past who once brought pain are now offering unseen shelter. They're not asking for forgiveness. They're working behind the veil to protect what they couldn't nurture while alive. Their absence trained you in resilience. Their distance taught you how to self-resource. And now they lend their force to yours, rewriting their legacy through your healing. What once felt like inherited damage is unraveling. The echoes of neglect, control, silence, each one is losing its hold. And in its place, a new blueprint is emerging, carved not from rebellion but from consciousness. Every act of self-honoring, every refusal to shrink, every moment you choose clarity over comfort. These are the signals that break ancient codes and light the path ahead for generations unborn. This isn't evolution by accident. You are weaving new architecture from within, where intention takes root faster than action. Thought becomes form. Alignment becomes manifestation. And the story being rewritten is no longer just personal. It's structural, ancestral, and irreversible. Something irreversible is happening. You're no longer waiting for life to deliver answers. You've stepped into the current itself, shaping outcomes through a frequency that doesn't ask for permission. What once felt like delay was actually design. Each pause, each misdirection, was a refinement, aligning you with pathways that would have remained hidden had you moved any faster. Every time you were overlooked, passed up, or shut out, it wasn't loss. It was insulation. You were being kept out of systems that would have diluted your clarity, shackled your creativity, or made you question your own rhythm. The unrest you used to interpret as misalignment was actually your system adjusting to hold more power than it ever had before. That disorientation was never dysfunction. It was growth unfolding in real time. Now, hesitation is no longer a stop sign. It's an invitation. The shake in your voice, the flutter in your chest, the impulse to run before a leap, these aren't flaws. They're signals. They're evidence that your body is syncing with realities that stretch beyond familiar limits. Each surge of fear is now read as a green light, not a warning, because you've learned that the unfamiliar is where expansion lives. And as this awareness deepens, something astonishing is occurring beneath the surface of your influence. Without changing your words, without trying to convince anyone, your energy is shifting rooms, shifting people. Whether you're creating, leading, or simply being fully present, you're leaving fingerprints on timelines not yet written. Your very existence is becoming a tuning fork that calls others into resonance. The ripple you've started can't be undone. What once disqualified you is now your signature. Those who dismissed you are being recalibrated by your presence. Every part of you that once made you feel like a misfit now marks you as a key holder. The chain reaction you've ignited isn't temporary, it's structural. And the system will never be the same. Something is shifting beneath the surface of how your value is perceived, not because you've shouted louder or chased harder, but because your quiet alignment has begun to speak for itself. There's a new rhythm to your efforts now, and what once felt like uphill exertion has given way to an effortless flow. Opportunities aren't being chased, they're magnetized. The work that arrives feels more like a natural extension of who you already are, rather than something you have to mold yourself into. Relational dynamics are evolving in real time. Influence is no longer something you wield, it's something that radiates. It's not being driven by ego or competition, but by the resonance of presence. People are leaning in, not because of what you're doing, but because of what you've become. No battles to prove worth. No need to outshine. Just an undeniable clarity that creates gravity. But what's happening now goes far deeper than admiration. Your transformation is reflecting back to others their own stagnant places. Some are inspired enough to shift. Others are cracking under the pressure of what your growth forces them to confront. Your evolution is acting as a mirror, and not everyone is ready to meet their own eyes. What they projected onto you is coming undone, and they don't know where to place it now. There's a convergence underway, a moment so precise it feels orchestrated. A full system collapse of the outdated identity you once wore just to survive. The old codes are no longer compatible with who you're becoming. A more sophisticated reality is surfacing from within, not built on borrowed logic but on inner coherence. What's coming online now will recalibrate everything you touch. And there's no returning to the previous version. Everything is being rewritten. Not just the things you've chosen to release, but the entire framework beneath how you experience life. What's happening isn't a simple shift. It's a restructuring of reality at its roots. The foundation you once stood on is no longer stable, and that's by design. A new system is emerging, one that prioritizes raw alignment over familiar comfort, depth over performance, and resonance over appearances. And from this new architecture, a version of you is rising that doesn't need to try, it simply is. Those who once labeled you as impractical, excessive, or strange are about to witness something they can't categorize. The signals you've been sending through your authenticity, refusing to conform, choosing solitude over compromise, have reached their destination. What's arriving now isn't reward for obedience. It's the return signal from a frequency you started transmitting long before you had proof it would echo back. Here comes the most stunning realization. Nothing you endured was random. The disapproval, the closed doors, the periods of quiet invisibility, they weren't detours. They were precise catalysts, coded to activate your current trajectory. Each encounter that cracked you open was preparing the space for something much larger to take root. Now that you've grown past the illusion, your existence itself is becoming the message. What others dismissed as eccentricity or self-obsession is revealing itself to be signal fire, an external expression of your inner clarity. You were never trying to be different. You were simply done being edited. And in that refusal to shrink, you've become a magnet for what was always meant for you but couldn't land while you were pretending to be smaller than your own truth. And now, a gate opens. Not to sell you something, but to invite you deeper. There's a place where real insight is being shared, raw and unfiltered, by those who stopped performing and started transmitting. The kind of knowledge that doesn't try to convince, it remembers. The kind that reminds you that the revolution you're living isn't personal. It's prophetic. The codes that once kept consciousness bound have begun to dissolve, and in their place, a blueprint of liberation is surfacing, available only to those with the resolve to embody it. This isn't a broadcast for attention. It's a call that only certain frequencies can detect. The ones who've walked through fire without asking to be rescued will know this message is meant for them. Without raising your voice, without explaining a thing, you've become a calibration point. Rooms feel different when you're in them. People sense the contradiction between who they pretend to be and the truth they avoid, and your mere existence brings it to the surface. But here's the real shock. Those who once manipulated the narrative to keep control are finding the script has been deleted. No fuel left for the takers. No signal left for the watchers. The mechanisms that used to drain your power are clicking into silence. They don't know where their grip went, only that they can't find it in you anymore. Their strategies collapse not because you fought back, but because you stopped feeding the illusion they needed to survive. You're no longer responding to distortions. You're vibrating above them. And when projections come, they dissolve on contact. When guilt knocks, there's no emotional door left to open. You've shifted realities, not by escaping the old one, but by rendering it obsolete through your refusal to shrink for it. Now, nothing less than truth can hold your attention. And nothing false can hold your energy. What's changed is subtle but seismic. There's no longer a need to adjust the volume of your truth just to feel safe in someone else's presence. Where you once may have twisted your own reflection to fit into borrowed mirrors, something deeper has settled in. The realization that your value isn't up for negotiation. This clarity doesn't come from ego. It rises from soul-level knowing that can't be outsourced. There's a grace in no longer seeking permission to exist. That internal stillness you've cultivated is maturing into something radical, full ownership of your presence. And from that state, your creative flow is becoming electric, shaping form out of energy in ways that defy logic. The very impulses you used to mute are now coming alive with momentum. What was once background noise is becoming the melody. That expression, whether it appears through movement, design, words, or solutions, isn't just output. It's devotion. It's communion with a source that's never needed to be explained, only embodied. And as you move in harmony with that signal, life's choreography becomes unnerving in its precision. What you need appears before you've even asked. Alignments arrive not by effort, but by resonance. This isn't luck. It's synchronization. You're no longer chasing impact, it's trailing behind you. The ripples of your evolution are now making contact with realities you didn't know you were influencing. People who once ignored your insight are echoing your ideas without knowing why. Patterns you shattered are now being questioned by those who once defended them. You're not teaching. You're transmitting. Without trying to change anyone, you're altering what they're capable of seeing in themselves. Your choices are awakening dormant pathways in others, not by persuasion, but by vibration. The field around you has shifted, and those within it are beginning to shift, too. The way you've chosen to exist is doing something subtle but radical. It's rewiring what others believe is possible for themselves. The way you walk through solitude, the way you honored your instincts when they pointed away from the crowd, has become living proof that self-loyalty isn't isolation, it's initiation. Without preaching, without convincing, you've become an example that speaks louder than advice. Now, recognition is arriving from directions you never chased. Not because you shouted your value into every room, but because you embodied it without needing confirmation. What's being offered to you isn't just tasks or roles, it's resonance. Invitations that match your voice, your rhythm, your design. You're not performing, you're expressing. And the impact is undeniable. Your surroundings are catching up to your evolution. Corners that once felt stagnant are softening into flow. The colors, textures, sounds, all of it is beginning to reflect your inner clarity. Anything that once reminded you of old pain is either dissolving or being repurposed into something sacred. The outer world is bending to match the internal shift that refuses to reverse. This sense of ease isn't indulgence, it's sacred architecture. And in that architecture, you're finding that giving no longer equals depletion. The more you offer from alignment, the more restored you become. Support flows both ways now. No more energetic debt. What used to cost you everything now fills you in return. This is what happens when your presence stops asking for permission and starts becoming the permission itself. What's unfolding now is the rarest kind of alignment, the kind that doesn't chase calm, but becomes it. The shift isn't just in how you act, but in what you emit. The emotional residue that once clouded your decisions has been replaced by a finely tuned field of inner command. You no longer fall into roles just to be needed. Instead, you choose how to show up, with clarity, with precision, with intent. In the middle of emotional storms, your signal doesn't waver. Even when tension walks in wearing familiar faces or when chaos knocks without warning, something within you remains untouched. This unshakable stillness is beginning to generate a quiet influence that turns heads without noise. You've become the stabilizing force others didn't know they were searching for. It's not because you're trying to fix anyone. It's because your frequency is doing the work your words no longer need to. People leave conversations with you feeling unburdened. Long-held confusion starts dissolving the moment they step into your presence. Solutions seem to organize themselves simply because your vibration invites order where there was once friction. And in the quieter spaces, those thresholds between thought and stillness, you're receiving more than insight. You're remembering codes passed down not in language, but in essence. What once came through scattered intuition is now arriving in direct streams, through dreams, through silence, through unexpected moments that feel more like guidance than coincidence. This is no longer about learning. It's about integration. Wisdom is not arriving as lessons to be obeyed, but as layers of recognition unfolding from within you. You're not reaching for anything, you're uncovering what's always been there. And the world is beginning to feel the shift. There's been a fundamental rewrite in how you relate to provision. The old tension around survival is dissolving, replaced by a deeper recognition that support doesn't come from force or control, it flows from alignment. The pressure to constantly strive is giving way to a knowing that purpose itself generates the supply. What you once pursued with anxiety is now arriving with grace, simply because your frequency matches what you're here to embody. What's happening now goes beyond personal transformation. It's a shift in the architecture of shared reality. You're no longer influencing outcomes in isolation. Your intentions are rippling into the collective web, creating resonance fields that others can unconsciously step into. You've become a point of access. What you've cleared in yourself is making it easier for others to unlock similar codes in themselves. And from that clearing, a different kind of presence is surfacing. It's not loud. It doesn't demand to be followed. It leads by existing. There's no costume of superiority, only the unmistakable signal of someone who has journeyed inward and returned with quiet power. You're not stepping into authority to prove anything. It's simply becoming obvious that your steadiness can hold what others are still learning how to carry. That's not performance. That's embodiment. And the world is finally ready to follow what's real. There's something powerful unfolding, not because of what you've preached, but because of how you've existed. The transparency with which you navigate your own complexity has become a quiet beacon for others. They're not following instructions. They're responding to a presence that makes them feel like they, too, have permission to be raw, unsure, evolving, and still worthy. It's not perfection that inspires them, it's your willingness to grow without apology. What's spreading now isn't a brand or ideology, it's an energy. A way of being that naturally invites reflection. The way you make decisions, hold space, tell the truth, it's stirring something in people. Without saying a word, you've become a question mark in their routine. They're rethinking what matters to them. They're wondering if they, too, can move through life without folding to the noise. And what's birthing through you now isn't a personal goal, it's a shared awakening. A recognition that what you've overcome wasn't just for you. Each time you stepped into discomfort instead of retreating, you carved out psychic room for others to do the same. Your private breakthroughs have become public invitations. The ripple you started has multiplied, crossing boundaries you'll never see but deeply shaped. There's a finality to this change that's exhilarating. You're not faking courage anymore. You've become the version of yourself that can no longer accept being small. The former patterns have lost their signal. The old emotional software simply won't run in your current frequency. And because of that, every future interaction must now respond to the clarity you embody. You've entered a category that doesn't have a map. The version of reality you're now living in is felt by others like a new atmosphere. It's not just your words they recall. It's the space your energy created for them to breathe more freely. You've become a living reference point for what's possible when someone refuses to fragment themselves for acceptance. This isn't ego, it's culmination. The journey that cracked you open also refined you into someone capable of holding far more than before. Those boundaries you've drawn, they're not just fences, they're scaffolding. They're the structure through which all the new begins to flow. And it's only just beginning. Something has sharpened beneath the surface of how you make decisions. An unseen calibration that moves faster than logic. The moment something enters your field, you already know whether it holds truth or distortion. That inner sorting system, once fragile and uncertain, has now become precise and effortless. What others call indecisiveness, you've replaced with energetic clarity. That clarity isn't just guiding your personal path anymore. It's expanded its reach. You've begun sensing the undercurrents that shape group behavior, the silent momentum behind social movements, and the invisible thresholds that entire communities are preparing to cross. What once felt like gut instinct has matured into a form of perception that doesn't ask for validation. It simply knows. Those watching from the outside may attribute your timing to coincidence or luck, but you've already seen through that illusion. What they're witnessing is coherence. Your frequency lining up with timelines that only open to those willing to move without forcing. What shows up for you is not random. It's responsive. It's the result of your surrender to a rhythm deeper than planning. And now the old self, the one who waited for permission, who second-guessed their path, who diluted truth to be digestible, is no longer present. In its place stands someone whose power does not rise from conquest, but from congruence. A presence that doesn't ask to lead, but makes leadership unavoidable. Your evolution isn't an isolated victory. It's a signal. Others feel it in your presence. It whispers to them that perhaps they, too, could stop shape-shifting for acceptance. That they could choose truth over trend. And for the first time, they're entertaining the idea that freedom begins when imitation ends. All because you showed them what alignment feels like. The way you've chosen to evolve has become more than personal. It's become an embodiment of what's possible when someone refuses to betray themselves for comfort. What once made you feel misplaced is now the very evidence that you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to illuminate. Your process of choosing depth over ease has turned your existence into a living catalyst for others searching for something real in a world addicted to imitation. Your external reality is starting to echo this deeper shift. Finances, opportunities, and even the physical spaces you occupy are reorganizing themselves around the clarity you've claimed. This isn't some instant jackpot. It's the natural byproduct of moving in sync with your deeper design. Where once limitation blocked the current, a new level of receptivity has been activated, not from striving, but from alignment. What's unfolding isn't about chasing achievement. It's about feeling nourished by the process itself. Your physical form has become more responsive, more attuned. There's ease where there once was resistance. You move differently now. Not from discipline, but from devotion. The very routines that once felt like work now feel like return. Your system knows what it takes to sustain this new frequency, and it's meeting you there with grace. But perhaps the most powerful transformation isn't visible. It's relational. Your authenticity has cracked something open in others. Without lecturing, without branding it, you've created an energetic permission slip that whispers, you don't have to shrink. You don't have to bend. You don't have to perform. And people are listening, not because they're told to, but because your presence feels like truth. The people now orbiting your field aren't here to rescue or contain you, they're here to rise with you. They value substance over convenience, growth over popularity. You've attracted a different kind of support, one that doesn't ask you to dilute yourself to be loved. One that sees your full range and says, keep going. We're evolving too. Something extraordinary is happening in how you relate. Conversations feel richer, silences feel safe, and connections no longer require translation. What's reaching you now isn't surface-level attention. It's resonance. It's recognition from souls who can feel the blueprint of transformation in your energy. You've stopped trying to be understood, and in doing so, you've become magnetic to those who are ready to understand themselves more deeply. Every solitary hour, every misunderstood chapter, every decision to walk away from what diluted your essence, it was all crafting the foundation for this level of alignment. The way you carry yourself, the tones you use, the choices you make, they've become a signature of liberation. What once unsettled others is now revealing itself as clarity in motion. You are no longer adjusting to fit into rooms. The rooms are adjusting to hold your frequency. What you now accept isn't based on compromise. It's anchored in clarity. You've become the embodiment of a new standard, one that doesn't apologize for asking more from life. The power you're exuding isn't performative, it's cellular. The sense of purpose guiding you isn't conceptual, it's embodied. And the ripple of that embodiment is so potent, it's shifting the trajectory of everyone who witnesses it.